Imagine looking out of your window in the morning. You see footprints in the fresh snow. They come out of the thick, dark forest. They walk across your field, and they stop right at your front door. You wait for the footprints to leave. You wait for the person to walk away, but they never do. The footprints lead to your house, but there are no footprints leading back. This means only one thing: the person who made them is still inside. In 1922, on a remote farm in Germany, a family of 6 was wiped out in a single night. It is one of the most chilling unsolved mysteries in history. But the scary part isn't just. The scary part is that the killer didn't leave. After the family was gone, the killer stayed in the house for days. He ate their food. He slept in their beds. He fed their cattle. He lived among the dead. This is the story of Hinterkaifeck, the story of the footprints that never returned. Part 1. The Isolated Fortress. Hinterkaifeck was not a happy place. It was a small farmstead hidden deep in the Bavarian woods, about an hour away from Munich. It was isolated. The nearest neighbor was half a mile away. The Gruber family lived there. They were wealthy, but they were not liked. Andreas Gruber, the father, was a strict and difficult man. He kept to himself. He didn't trust outsiders. Living with him were his wife, Cecilia, their widowed daughter, Victoria, and her 2 children, 7-year-old Cecilia and baby Joseph. They were a fortress. They didn't need anyone. They had their land, their money, and their secrets. But in late 1921, the fortress began to crack. The family maid, who had worked there for years, suddenly quit. She was terrified. She packed her bags in a panic and told the neighbors, "I cannot stay there another night. That house is haunted." She claimed she heard footsteps in the attic. She said she felt like she was being watched from the shadows. Andreas Gruber laughed at her. He told her she was crazy. He hired a new maid, Maria, to start on March 31st. He didn't know that March 31st would be the last day of their lives. Part 2. The Stranger in the Snow. A few days before the tragedy, Andreas Gruber went outside to check his land. It had snowed heavily the night before. That's when he saw them. Footprints. Fresh boot prints coming out of the dense forest, moving in a straight line toward the farmhouse. Andreas was confused. He didn't have visitors. He followed the tracks. He expected them to lead to the door and then turn around, as if a traveler had lost his way and asked for directions. But the tracks didn't turn around. They went to the machine room door and stopped. There were no footprints leading away. Whoever had walked out of the woods was somewhere on the farm. Andreas searched the barn. He searched the shed. He searched the machine room. He found no one. But then, other things started happening. He found a newspaper in the house that he had never bought. It was from a city miles away. He realized his set of house keys was missing, and late at night, the family began to hear it. The sound that the old maid had warned them about. Footsteps in the attic. Dot, thump, thump, thump. Right above their bedrooms. Andreas checked the attic, but it was empty. Yet, the feeling of being watched grew stronger. The family didn't know it, but they were living with a phantom. Someone was hiding in the haylofts, watching their daily routine, learning their schedule, and waiting for the perfect moment. Part 3. The Night of Silence. March 31st, 1922. A Friday, the new maid, Maria, arrived at the farm. It was her first day. She unpacked her things. She said hello to the children. She prepared for bed. She had no idea that she had walked into a death trap. As the sun went down, a storm began to brew. The wind howled through the trees. The snow began to fall again. One by one, the members of the family were lured to the barn. We don't know exactly how it happened. Maybe they heard a noise. Maybe they saw a light. First, the old man, Andreas, then his wife, then the daughter, Victoria, then the 7-year-old granddaughter. They walked from the warm house into the cold, dark barn, and they never walked out. The killer was waiting in the shadows. It was silent. It was efficient. There were no gunshots, no screams that could be heard over the wind. After the adults and the young girl were gone, the killer walked into the house. He went into the bedroom where the new maid, Maria, was sleeping. And then he went to the crib where baby Joseph was sleeping. By midnight, the farm was silent. The entire family was gone. Part 4. The Ghost Who Stayed. This is where the story becomes truly terrifying. Usually, after a crime, the criminal runs away. They want to put as much distance as possible between themselves and the scene. But the Hinterkaifeck killer didn't run. On Saturday morning, neighbors saw smoke rising from the chimney of the farmhouse. On Sunday, people passing by saw the cattle being fed. On Monday, the postman dropped off the mail. He noticed that the weekend mail hadn't been picked up, but he thought the family was just busy. For 3 whole days after the tragedy, someone was living in that house. They were eating the family's bread. They were cutting meat from the pantry. They were keeping the fire warm. Imagine the scene. The killer sitting at a kitchen table, eating dinner, while the family he just removed lay only a few yards away in the barn. It takes a special kind of coldness to do that. Part 5. The Discovery. On Tuesday, April 4th, neighbors began to worry. The young girl, Cecilia, hadn't shown up for school for 2 days. The family hadn't been seen at church on Sunday. A group of men decided to go to the farm to check on them. The place was eerily quiet. The dog was barking inside the barn. The men pushed open the barn door, and there, under a pile of hay, they found them. The 4 bodies were stacked on top of each other, covered with hay and an old door. The men rushed into the house. They found the maid in her bed. They found the baby in his crib. The police were called, but the investigation was a disaster from the start. Because the killer had lived there for days, the crime scene was contaminated. He had moved things around. He had used the stove. The police found traces of a meal that had been eaten recently. They found the bed in the attic had been slept in. They found that the cattle were well fed. The killer had even milked the cows so they wouldn't be in pain. It was baffling. Why would a killer care about the cows? Part 6. Who was I to? Over 100 suspects were questioned, but no one was ever charged. Was it a robbery? The police found a large amount of money in the house. The killer hadn't touched it. So, money wasn't the motive. Was it a revenge killing? Andreas Gruber had enemies. But who hates a family enough to stay in their house for 3 days after they are gone? One theory suggests it was the husband of Victoria, who was thought to have died in World War I. Some believed he didn't die, but returned to find his wife had a new baby, and in a rage, he ended the family. But this was never proven. Another theory points to a neighbor who had been interested in Victoria. He was the one who found the bodies. He seemed to know his way around the dark farm very well. But the most chilling theory is simply the drifter. A stranger passing through the woods. Someone who saw the isolated house. Someone who wanted a place to stay. He lived in their attic. He watched them. And when he was ready, he took the house for himself. Part 7. The End of the Farm. A year later, the neighbors tore the farmhouse down. They said it was cursed. They couldn't bear to look at it anymore. While tearing it down, they found a hidden space in the attic floorboards. Inside, they found a Matica farming tool. It was covered in rust and old stains. It was likely the weapon, and it had been hidden there, right above where the family slept the whole time. The Hinterkaifeck Murders remain unsolved to this day. It is a story that reminds us of our deepest fears. We fear the dark woods. We fear the noises in the attic. But mostly, we fear the idea that we are not safe in our own homes. Andreas Gruber saw the footprints. He knew someone was there, but he didn't leave. He locked his doors and hoped it would go away. But some things don't go away. Some things just wait for you to fall asleep. Part 8. Co on si su om. The snow eventually melted. The footprints disappeared. But the mystery of Hinterkaifeck remains frozen in time. Who was the man in the attic? Why did he stay? Did he think he was part of the family? When you go to sleep tonight, listen to your house. Listen to the creaks in the floorboards. Is it just the wind, or is it footsteps? And if you see footprints in the snow leading to your door, Don't wait to see if they leave. Just run. Thank you for watching this true story. This case has haunted investigators for 100 years. What do you think happened? Was it a neighbor? Or was it a stranger living in the walls? Let me know in the comments. Hit like if this story gave you chills, and I'll see you in the next mystery.